Well, I think maybe we ought to get started. Uh,
All right.
it is, first of all, it's great to see you all. Thank you for coming. It's my very great pleasure to introduce Dan Friedrich, who is a neighbor and a local expert who actually consults with the government and the military and the Navy and all over the country and the world on various technical and AI provocations. And he will address us today. Um, and I don't, oh, he's also, in addition, Second City trained. So he's, if, if, if we don't understand AI, he can at least make us laugh. So it is my great pleasure to introduce Dan. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan, and welcome everyone to the first and only presentation on AI that you've ever heard. I think whatever else we want to say about this AI subject, it's certainly been saturated. Uh, but that's, it doesn't mean there isn't a lot more to be said. And it's a very, important phenomenon, I think. And so it behooves us all to become as informed as we can. So I called this thing AI Provocations. And the reason I use that title is because I want to make some claims during this talk that I say are true, but that are meant to stimulate conversation. So I do want to encourage you along the way, if a question pops into your head, feel free to interrupt and ask it right then. We don't. I'm sure we will do some sort of dedicated Q&A at the end, but since the whole purpose of this is to stimulate conversation, I don't want you to have to hold it. Just get it right out there, and if it's the case that I'm going to get to kind of a deeper explanation of your question, I'll say that, and we'll just move on. Okay, so I imagine we have a pretty diverse audience in terms of backgrounds and familiarity with technology in general, and also with artificial intelligence technologies in particular. So I don't want to just leap, forward and assume a bunch of things. So I will start off with some basics, and then I'll move on to my actual provocations, and they're numbered so they're true. Anyway, so what is AI? Well, it certainly is not the beginning of automation. Obviously, we've had computing now for a long time, and we've been automating things for a long time, and we've even had bits and pieces of what you might call AI for a long time. And so it's an interesting question right off the bat to try to figure out what. So we can't just say, well, AI is automation. Well, sure, it's automation, but we've had that. So what's distinctive about it? And I would argue that one of the distinctive things about it, and of course there are exceptions to every rule, but that generally what AI is allowing us to tackle now, for people like me who've been doing automation for a long time, is probabilistic problems. So here I'm making a distinction between probabilistic and deterministic. That may not be familiar terminology to you, but a deterministic problem is one that is subject to an answer that's the same every time, right? So a deterministic problem is, what is 2 plus 2? It is now and forever shall be 4, right? We don't need some fuzzy algorithm to noodle around about that and approximate it, right? It's a deterministic problem. It's subject to a right answer. And it turns out that we've done a hell of a lot of automating in the software business, just using deterministic tools that do the same thing every time you run them. Now, you may, when as a consumer or somebody else playing a role touching this technology, you may experience inconsistent answers. When you call, or when you call tech support somewhere, of course, you have human intervention coming there between our beautiful automation and your answer. But and of course, data none of us needs to be told that data isn't always of high quality. And so, garbage in, garbage out. So with a deterministic set of tools, it will reliably produce garbage if you put garbage in. But if you put good content and good data in, it will reliably produce good answers. So a name for a comedy show I'd like to do kind of gets at this deterministic versus probabilistic distinction, and I want to call it "Dear Possible Comcast Customer, Attached may be your bill." Now, as you may get, the joke here is that we've been using deterministic tools to bill people forever, and you add approximately no value by throwing artificial intelligence tools at it, which are good at handling probabilistic questions. Now, of course, you may get an incorrect bill from Comcast, but that is, it's either due to a bug in their billing system, or more likely, it's just bad data. But the solution is not to throw AI at that problem. So we've talked a little bit about the deterministic traditional programming. Now to talk a little bit more about what do I mean by a probabilistic problem that we solve with tools that are optimized for probabilistic problems. So those are sort of questions that are by their nature may not have a single right answer. They may be fuzzy. They probably have no matter how well you do them, they may have an error rate just inherently. There's all kinds of domains now where we have these probabilistic AI tools. So, if we wanted to recognize your faces and automatically assign your name to you, because the tool right now deterministically shows your name, right? You typed it in, you logged in, it shows me your name. But let's say the tool doesn't ask you anything about your name, but it just goes and looks in the great interwebs and figures out, oh, that looks like Susan Alito. I'll put that label. Now, I may be wrong. Maybe she's Genghis Khan and I just got it wrong. I didn't, So that is recognizing faces and identifying people is inherently a probabilistic question. And there's bound to be an error rate. Now, you can get the error rate really low, like if I have 1,000 recent good pictures of Susan Alito, and now my tool, having been trained on those 1,000 pictures, sees Susan Alito right now, the error rate for that recognition will probably be extremely low. But and so that's one example. Another is, you do voice recognition. So you speak, and an AI tool is taking as input your voice and is producing not just an audio recording, but an actual transcript of what you're saying. So that's an AI process that's going from speech to text. That's a probabilistic problem. If you don't have AI type tools, it's more or less impossible to solve that problem. Handwriting recognition is another example, right? My scribbles I mean, I myself have a hard time recognizing them. And you know, but a tool, especially one that's seen a lot of my handwriting, has and then has tried to turn it into text, and then I've corrected it, you know, can get pretty good at recognizing my scribbles. You have similar tools now that are AI tools where you can draw a diagram, right? As an illustration of some kind, just hand draw it with a digital pen or even on paper. And if you do it on paper, then you'll need to scan it. But then the AI tool will try to recognize the diagram from that picture and turn it into, you know, a reasonable, appropriate format to continue working with that diagram. Ideally, it's, you know, something that is vector based, like diagrams are, something like Visio or a tool like that, Illustrator. Um, and then of course we get so all of those things I've given as examples so far are they are generating output from input, but you're trying to get a very one-to-one relationship. So it's not really right to call them generative AI, which is a term you may have heard, even though they are generating output. I mean, they're taking inputs in, they're doing a fuzzy match, you know, kind of analysis that's inherently it needs these AI tools, and they're producing an output. But there's kind of a we've had those types of of capabilities for quite a while, and we don't really refer to those in the business as generative AI. That is something that came on the scene really with ChatGPT like 3 years ago, and that is what made and we refer to that as generative AI, not because it's the first AI tool that ever took in input and produced output, but because there's a kind of an enormous ratio quite often between from the output to the input, as compared to the one-to-one ratios that you have with those other examples I just gave. So, for instance, I can say, as I have done, right? And I will actually show you a few. I'm going to show you some samples along the way to give you an idea of the kind of work I do day in and day out with these tools. Because I don't know about you, but for me, examples is how I prefer to learn. But you know, I worked on a comedy show during the pandemic that I called Hiding in Plain View. It's about my hometown in Nebraska, farm community. I grew up on a farm. And as part of that, I did research on the whole history of the family farm. So I kind of combined comedic stories from my own experience with telling this big picture of what I conclude is the death of the family farm, never to return. Hilarious. Coming soon to a box office. But anyway, the point is that as part of that research, at the time, I didn't have AI tools because it was during the pandemic. We didn't really have ChatGPT yet. And so, you know, I did that sort of using traditional methods. And my show, I incorporated 10 U.S. Department of Agriculture charts, and I zoomed in from using Google Maps onto confinement operations which is how livestock is raised these days. Now I came back to that project, and I'll show some examples from it. Among others. And I said, well, why don't I actually do some more serious research on the agriculture history that I was telling there? And so now, using generative AI with a tight prompt that, you know, sort of very clearly, but in English, just precise English, I end up saying I want to research certain elements of the trends of agriculture, where it's productivity statistics, changes in technologies. My dad was an early adopter of what's called minimum till farming. I went back and figured out what exactly he bought, and that there was this little cluster of a manufacturer who was innovating in this technology near where we grew up. So even though he was like in the 1% early adopters, that little pocket in Nebraska was all doing it together. So anyway, I didn't know any of that. I just had vague. I remembered whatever that minimum till planter was yellow, and I knew about the year. And I was able to use generative AI to, just define some prompts and get analyses of both. To learn about that, to learn about the whole history of agriculture, and to provide me with some more professional visualizations for the live version of that show that I now want to do, because like during the pandemic it was just virtual. So in generative AI, this is a very common kind of move where you just write a very compact prompt in English about just declaring what you want, and then you might get a 10-page report, or 10,000 lines of code, or a dense picture that, and so the use, and one of the things you need to understand about this technology is that it is a massive assumption machine. That which you do not declare will be decided for you by the tool, right? So if you want to be a control freak, you better specify a hell of a lot of constraints. I want this color, not that color. I want only in my picture, I want to see John Deere. I do not want to see International Harvester under any circumstances. I want to exclude this, this is the color palette I want to use. This is the tone I want. Every dimension of any kind of generated output that you might want, if you just say, generate a picture of a farm scene, you can get a picture. But guess who's making almost all the decisions? The tool. But you can see the ratio there of almost no input, just a very short sentence producing some pretty major output. So that is this new category that's really seized everyone's imagination, which is this generative AI. Okay. And, I've given a few examples in passing here, but, you can generate all sorts of things, text, data visualizations, software code, PowerPoint presentations, Excel sheets, music, images, video, and then in particular, within those categories, you can of course generate all sorts of genres and variants as you wish. So it is it's a massive leap forward, and unlike some of the technology we already had, like you may have heard the phrase machine learning. So machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence, and it has been around quite a while, and it is focused on. So I'm a data analytics and visualization guy myself. So under normal circumstances, I fire up my tools, I point them at data sets, I build up what's called a model, which is kind of a headless thing that enriches the underlying data, and then I make visuals on top of the model, and away we go, right? But I am the master of my ship the whole time. I'm pulling all the levers. With machine learning, for a long time now, we've had the ability to say, hey, here's a data set. Why don't you chew on this for a while and see if you can find any interesting patterns in here? So rather than me saying, let me try to do a regression where this is the independent variable, this is the dependent variable, let's look at this, I sort of sit there and think of all the hypotheses, and then I pull the levers to test them. With this machine learning, you basically tell the tool, hey, why don't you orchestrate yourself, run through, a couple hundred possibilities, and if you find any interesting patterns, uh, let me know. Right. And so that's been a way that you could, sort of automate the analytics process where really what you're doing is the underlying regressions and those types of things are the same. But there's really an automation layer there that's the orchestrator. And it sits there and says, why don't we look at this? Let's try that one. Let's try this field. Maybe this causes that. No, maybe it's the other way around, and it just sort of sits there. So that's been a useful thing, but it's a technical thing, right? It's not this just that has not, it didn't seize the public's imagination. But obviously,
is this how they got the new viruses that they developed?
well, in some sense, yes, because whether you're talking about machine learning specifically or sort of the broader AI capabilities that we have, one of the things you can do is try, 1,000 variants. So, I mean, like to take the example of Edison and the light bulb, and we've been told, he tried 1,000 filaments or whatever until he found the right one. No doubt today, you would simulate the filaments, the options, and probably would figure out the ideal filament a lot faster. His lab had to literally dream up those things and then test them and then the next. So yeah, when you're sitting there trying to figure out how could we make this virus more deadly or make it more contagious, this sort of so-called gain of function research, which of course you can be wearing a black hat or a white hat when you do this kind of research. But there's, and that's all it takes is just a hat. If you're wearing a white hat, you're good. But anyway, so you can iterate through these things a lot faster. There's whole companies now that have been built on this sort of rapid evaluation of options. So I know there's a water purification company that's using AI. So far, I think they have 8 ways to mitigate different kinds of arsenic and other things in water supplies. They come up with treatments very specifically for about 8 of them. The last I heard their pitch, but they had a roadmap where they expected to end up with 100 specialized treatments, but they were using AI to just look, to sort of simulate a whole bunch of alternatives. And so you're going to see that kind of automation everywhere. Okay, so I think I've said what I wanted to say about the basics here. So why don't I pause and see, does anyone have any question about what do I mean by deterministic tools and problems, and what do I mean by probabilistic tools and problems? And I'm saying before we had these AI tools, we really couldn't effectively address the probabilistic problems. We were very good at addressing deterministic problems, and I spent my whole career doing that. But because we didn't have good tools to do that, now that we can, the floodgates have opened to this, to this sort of mass. It's a green field of problems, challenges that we've never had good tools to address, and now we do. And so, there's obviously millions of companies that are being founded to carve out certain parts of that whole new green field. Any questions before I move on to the actual? Yes. Yeah. Go. I can't hear anyone, but I saw.
Yeah. I'd like to say that I was involved with machine learning before we even had a name for it.
Deterministic is objective, and probabilistic is subjective, so to speak. what is the difference between generative and mechanical? It seems to me they're both the same thing. You're asking for a solution, you're feeding data and getting a solution.
Well, if you look at it at a high enough level of abstraction, yes. That's why I was saying that, we always take input in and we produce output. And we've even had, long before we had ChatGPT, you may have used some of the, voice recognition technologies on your phone or elsewhere. But in those cases, it's really for me about the ratio of input to output. If I speak words and the output are words in text, yes, I'm generating that text, but it's a almost 1-to-1 ratio. And it's when you start to say, simulate 1,000, take this project plan, make the following assumptions about the risks of whether we're going to be able to meet these dates, and simulate this whole plan 1,000 times, produce all 1,000 simulation records, and then analyze them and give me measures of central tendency and dispersion. Well, that I'm calling generative AI, because I just gave you what might be a prompt that works, given the project plan, which I just assumed I had. But that is, once you've reached that ratio of this tiny, it's like the difference, it's like putting a little pebble at the top of the mountain and having an avalanche come down, as opposed to scooping out your driveway. But you're right. At an abstract level, they are exactly the same.
Okay. Thank you.
I started to say that I've been involved with, I was involved with machine learning since before we had a name for it.
Oh, cool.
And I've been part of the Open Computer Society since it was started with Linus Torvald. And I want you to know that OpenAI was created by a lot of us who had volunteered to what they call train this thing. So you have all the prejudices, all the falsehoods, all the insanity that each of us imparted. And then the president of this organization found that he could make money by selling subscriptions. So OpenAI now is the biggest lie ever. And the problem is that it's truly just a big matrix. And you're doing the same thing as you did when you went online with your browser, or if you went to something like Wikipedia, only it's a lot more, because they call it LLM, large language medium. And if you take just one word, molecular, to a medical researcher, it means one thing. To a physicist, it means another. To an engineer, it means another. To a mathematician, it means another. So the single advantage of so-called AI, as well as its failure, is if you just say, I want to know something about molecular whatever, it looks at everything. And it comes back with God only knows what answer. Now, that could be good if you are in a specialized field and you're now looking at papers that you didn't know existed from some other field. That's good. If you are a person that wants an answer to something, that's really bad, because you don't know what you're getting. The other problem with AI as it stands right now is if you ask it the same question 3 times, it figures, well, I don't know what you want. The 4th time, it'll just make it up. The Chinese were able to create their, it's not even an LLM, their system, DeepSeek, just by what I call creating rails. So they have all these rails that go to specific research groups or organizations, universities, research suppliers to the various government organizations, and look at that matrix. So they were able to create this in a few months, what took a couple of years for OpenAI. And in doing so, they've also shown us that it would be easy if we have a good computer to do everything on our own machine and do our own lookups. And I think this is the way it's going. It's heading that way. And if you're investing money, don't invest in AI because I think it's going to blow up by the end of the year. So
I'll take that bet.
So anyway, I just wanted to make those points clear. You cannot just openly trust this, as Dan has been saying. It's fuzzy. At best, it's fuzzy.
Yeah, it is. It is. Although I have to say, it is very rapidly evolving and getting better. So let me. I don't. Was there a question in there?
I was going to say.
No,
or are you just volunteering to give the next talk?
I was going to say.
No, I just wanted to hopefully add some clarification to what you're saying.
Now that you have very relevant background. Well, we should. I'd be curious to talk to you offline about some of that background. Pretty fascinating. And I wasn't even gonna. I was trying to stay away from LLM and similar acronyms, but there you went right into it.
So maybe we should get back to a level that some of the rest of us could understand.
Yeah. Okay. So unless there's any other questions at this point, I'm going to move on to some to kind of blitz through some of my provocations. So provocation number 1. AI is a tsunami, and it's coming faster than any technology wave we've ever seen. So, notwithstanding what Rosalind just said, it's not going to end in December, if you ask me. We don't have the time here, but I've done a lot of research about AI, obviously, as well, including the rate of diffusion of this technology compared to the telegraph, the railroad, the microcomputer, et cetera. You can look at a lot of those curves. And suffice it to say that what we see so far of this curve is the most rapid diffusion rate that we've had with any of those. And I believe that one of the reasons that that's so is that these, as is always the case with leaps forward in technology, they don't happen in a vacuum. They don't happen on their own. They build on what has come before, and a lot of big leaps, cannot happen until a bunch of preconditions are in place. And then once that's the case, once you have those platforms, then you can have extremely rapid evolution on top of those platforms. And so with I don't want to go again. We could go into a long detour here, but I won't. But if you even just think casually about what are all of the technical leaps forward that we've already had that current AI depends very heavily on, especially for its rapid diffusion rate. And that would include things like, well, computing, the computing revolution in general. We need networks. We need high-speed broadband. We need cloud computing, right? These servers that are scalable, and that we have a high-speed connection to, and we need, companies that are large enough and have enough resources to make the enormous investments that it takes to build the data centers and the chips and the software, all of the training data. We need massive storage. So there's a whole, we need the kind of these devices that we're working on right now that are connected to all of that power, computing power and storage. And so if those things hadn't happened, if we for some reason had this, great insight into how to build these kinds of generative AI tools, but we didn't have any of those other pieces in place, it would still be, that technology would still make its way out into the world, but the rate of adoption would be wildly. I mean, what are you going to do? Ship it on the CompuServe CD back when they were trying to get everybody to sign up for that, and you'd get a new CD every week. Please, this time, stick it in your drive. Oh, you don't have a CD-ROM drive? Okay, so now we're in a situation where a Microsoft, which has roughly 1 billion users globally, all on top of a single virtual cloud platform, can dream up a new sort of AI capability, push a button, and in a couple of weeks, those billion people have adopted it. That is a radically a different kind of platform. I mean, even just in the IT field, not to bore you, but it was all, for decades, the IT departments of major corporations, they controlled all of those types of things. They micromanaged them. And there were rules of thumb like never install the first release. Don't even install the second patch. Wait till the third patch, and only that. So you could be talking about waiting years to install the new version. And even then, they wouldn't just push it out. They'd have to test it. And then some very conservative policies. Now they've all been retrained to just say, what the hell? We've lost control over this. You have a few little knobs you can control to slow it down a little bit. But we've all gotten used to, I'm sure all of you are, are you micromanaging the updates to your smartphone and your computer? Probably not. You're probably just saying, I trust you, I do. So anyway, this is a big one. So I mean, I guess I disagree with Rosalind in that sense. That I think we've got this isn't going to blow over. Like, I could take a counterexample. I was never a believer in blockchain. And the one use case it seemed to ever have, which was cryptocurrency, and the one use case that ever seemed to have, which is criminal payments. And I've sat that thing out for 10 years, and I'm very glad I did, because I still think Warren Buffett is right that it's rat poison times 5. So not every technical, headline is worth adopting. But this, I think, is. All right, provocation number 2. AI is a special challenge because it takes aim at things that make us human. The software that correctly emails you your Comcast bill, no one ever confused it with a human. Right. I mean, it's clearly just technology. It doesn't remind us. We don't have to use human anthropomorphic metaphors all the time to understand it. But now it's interesting. We've had a lot of we have this technology that mimics capabilities that humans have that we haven't had technology before that could really do that. So, I mean, it can pretend to speak. It could be trained on your voice and pretend to speak as you. It could pretend to generate a video of you. It writes. It can write plays. It can, if it's in a robot form, it can dance, right? These are, and it's plowing right into, in the workplace and elsewhere, it's plowing right into activities that we have always thought were distinctly human, and that distinguished us from animals and so on. And so naturally it presents some really new sort of existential questions. And, I think that we're making some pretty serious mistakes because of that. But I think it's understandable that we are. So for instance, I think you pretty much have to use, or it's natural to use, human analogies to understand various capabilities that these tools have. It's just inevitable that you're going to use those. But at the same time, in my opinion, you need to always remember that that's just a metaphor. They're not actually the same. Don't ever lose the metaphor and just let it be an identity that, they're not thinking like we think. They do not have consciousness. They do not in any meaningful sense, quote unquote, hallucinate, right? They make mistakes, they make stuff up, but they don't have, they don't have a soul. They're not organic, so that beings. So therefore, by my definition, they cannot have consciousness. We see a lot of, I think, rot that about these things, which I think a lot of it comes down to confusing the ubiquitous anthropomorphizing that we do of this tech, and then eventually you stop even seeing it as metaphorical, and it just becomes second nature. So I would strongly urge us to both use the metaphors, because there's almost no alternative that I can see. But at the same time, keep your guard up, realize that, this is just a metaphor. And I think at this point, I'm going to read to you. So here's, actually, I guess I'll share my screen now. Share what? Entire screen. Okay, let's try that. All right. So here you can see I'm in. How do I make this thing at the top get out of my way? Oh, it will eventually just move aside. Okay. All right. So here I am in Chat GPT, and I asked it a question. Partly in preparation for this presentation. You can see here's my prompt. What does available research and data say about my view that one major challenge in understanding and discussing AI is that, while the most useful AI analogies are to human capabilities, at the same time, considering AI bots and the like as persons with points of view and human-like identities is a fundamental category error. So while we find ourselves explaining AI using anthropomorphizing concepts like hallucination, thinking, and even you, we must never collapse these metaphors into implicit or explicit claims that they are the same as they're in their nature. As part of your, see, I did it, analysis, extend the anthropomorphizing examples list that I provided to many others that are commonly used. Also expand on how to use these analogies without being misled by them and whether there are other analogies to prefer. So that's kind of the point I just made. The reason I brought this up is that I kind of like I like to think I could have come up with this very same list, but they did come up with a pretty nice, pretty complete list. Examples of anthropomorphized language that gets used when we talk about these AI bots. So cognition, it thinks, it reasons. I'm right. I don't know if you can see this. Maybe the text is tiny, but I'm right here. It thinks, it reasons, it understands, figures out, realizes. I want to go and I want to start doing a George Carlin right now. It's like somehow it just feels like a George Carlin bit. It thinks, it reasons, it understands, it figures out, it realizes, considers, reflects. And then knowledge. It knows, doesn't know, believes, doubts, is certain, is confident. It memory, it remembers, it forgets, it recalls, it recognizes errors, it hallucinates, it gets confused, it misunderstands, agency, having agency, it decides, it chooses, it tries, it acts, it refuses, and I could go on, right? Like this is a really pretty funny. Here at the end, we get to like Mark Zuckerberg territory. It knows me. This is the last line down here. It knows me. It likes me. It's my assistant, my friend, my coworker. And you may have heard Mark Zuckerberg, because I don't think he's ever had a non-creepy idea. So his latest creepy idea was, how to solve the loneliness problem? We should all have a bot friend, right? And I was like, that is a category error. That is fundamentally that can never be a friend. I think everyone agrees with me. If not, you're my enemy. But anyway, I mean, you can see there's just, I think it's all of these examples, these terms are ones that do get commonly used to talk about the relationship that people are having with these bots. And if you think for a moment about them, they all imply a human being behind, in the wizard. And it's just wrong. So don't do that. Okay. Again, you feel free to interrupt me at any point if I provoked you and you disagree. It is true, my friend. Okay, provocation number 3. AI presents great opportunities and great threats. So I think this is true of pretty much every technology that we invent. I did a show in 2014 called Drones, Clones, and Phones. I know what you did last summer. And one of the scenes I did in there, I called The History of Technology and Science in 5 minutes or less. And we would get a suggestion from the audience, give me a leap forward, and the wheel. And then somebody in our cast would step forward at the moment of invention of the wheel and say, you know what? I just shaved the corners off of this square, and I'm calling it a wheel. And look, and they were all like, oh my God, think of the possibilities. And they brainstorm, and then I, as the MC, go, ding, everybody freezes. The inventor steps forward and says, wait a minute. I think we could use the wheel to kill people. And then they all go, oh my God. They brainstorm that. And in my opinion, the beauty of this improvised scene is, I don't care what the audience suggestion is, right? We're gonna do it every single time. And the same is true with this. We've already seen it change the nature of warfare dramatically. If you follow in any granularity what's going on in the Ukraine-Russia war, it's becoming a robot war already. And this is just early days, and no one knows how this is going to play out. Okay. Of course, it's our job to try to is that a hand up, Sophia? You have you can unmute yourself. Or somebody can, I don't know, can I unmute you? Oh, there we go. Yeah, good.
I had my hand up. I think what I'm concerned about is how my privacy when I'm chatting with Chat GTP or whatever the acronym is. I get a little bit worried about whether I should be sharing certain things or asking certain questions. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, that's a really good thing. In my own case, not only am I concerned about, my personal information, but I do a bunch of business work with this, and I consider it intellectual property, and I don't want anybody getting their hands on my proprietary work. So I have a concern from that point of view too. So the very first thing I did when I looked into all of these bots, that the kind of the leading ones, and I kind of make it my business to subscribe to all of them because I just need to know what each of them is capable of. And with ChatGPT specifically, I would recommend, first of all, with all of these, if you're not paying for it, you're not going to be able to protect your information. If you read the fine print, they're using your data. And so I recommend, if you care at all about your privacy, and especially if you don't want it to be trained on your data, and so that then somebody else can actually take your work and it shows up in the output for them, then you should pay. It's not that expensive. It's roughly $20 a month for the first tier of just about all of the leading tools, which would be OpenAI, ChatGPT, Anthropic, Claude, a Google Gemini, Microsoft Copilot, and XAI, Grok, which is Elon Musk's. I mean, I would list those five as pretty much the big five, and we could debate, but with ChatGPT specifically, there's a free version now with ads, and then there's the first tier is about $20. I would recommend. I think you should, if you're serious about these and you care about your data, you should pay for it, because then you should very specifically go in, and in most of these tools, there's a way, or maybe there is a way. There's a place in the settings where you can say, "Do not use my data for training." Then you should definitely turn that off. And so ChatGPT has that. Claude has that setting. Gemini from Google is, in my opinion, kind of a son of a bitch, because and I already went through. I first signed up for the $20 consumer version of that, and then I found out that you could either save your work. I mean, if you're doing these chats, you usually want to keep it around, right? It's not just some ephemeral, okay, I know which pizza to get, so who cares? If it has any value, you need to turn on saving. But if you save, it automatically uses all of your data in its training. And there's no option to both save your work and keep it out of the train. So I went through a big rigmarole to convert my Google consumer account to their business account where you can protect it. So my recommendation is, if you want to use Google's Gemini, don't use the consumer one at all unless you don't care about your privacy at all. And then you got to look at setting up the business one, and there's a lot of hoops to run through for that. So I think for the average consumer, I would just stay away from Google. You have good options from OpenAI and Anthropic, and then Microsoft's. And so Claude has the same kind of setting. You can go in and say, "Do not use my data for training." So that's the very first thing you should do if you sign up for Claude and pay for it. And then Microsoft, since it is a business offering, they're pretty good on this. Most of their plans will protect your data. It's a big pitch they make to enterprises that all of your data stays in. And they couldn't have sold Copilot at all if they couldn't assure companies that we're not going to use your data out for anything. And then Grok, basically, okay, call me prejudiced against Elon. I'm not giving him any money. and anyway, his chatbot is generally rated as bringing up the rear. It's not really very capable, and I have no idea how those people who invested in this SpaceX plus his AI assets entity thought it was worth trillions of dollars, because he's in most 80% of that valuation based on AI, when you're just betting that, I guess, that he's a genius and he's going to figure it out. But I'm not betting that. Yes, Michael, unmute yourself.
We've been reading a lot about AI viruses that have been used to attack infrastructure like water systems. Recently, there was an article about the fact that Taiwan's governmental sites, some of which were supposedly well protected, were infiltrated by AI viruses. And it sounds to me like, and it could be wrong, it's almost impossible to harden these a system these days against that type of attack.
Well,
and puts us all at jeopardy, I guess, our country at jeopardy.
No, you're exactly right. One reason that's the case is that you're only as well protected as your weakest point, right? And these tools are great at, let's check all the points. Let's check all their endpoints. Every single Internet of Things endpoint that, that water system has, every programmable logic controller, which is the, let's see if it happens to be connected to the internet, and let's see if they've, updated the software to the latest version. And of course, when you're talking about something like water systems, which are, one of my clients for years was the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Chicago. And, there's I don't know, tens of thousands of water treatment organizations across the country at every level of government, and they can't all afford to have security specialists to make sure that they're hardened and to use sort of black hat tests and all that. So so this is a battle between offense and defense, right? If you are a muscled up large corporation, like one of my clients, Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, those types of companies, they have been muscled up for decades against threats, right? Because not just, there's all kinds of parties that try to hack them, and that's been true forever. So organizations like that, take every step they can. It's kind of amazing. Like I have software that runs on computers at those places, and when I look at the task manager, sometimes I see half of the machine is watching the other half of the machine. It's like using like half the processing power is going to monitor the other half to make sure that nothing bad is happening. It's amazing. But the average Minnesota water districts, they can't do that. And these programmable logic controllers, which are, these go way back. They're these little, controls that open valves and open, that control water movement and all kinds of things. If you connect those to the internet, you better make sure it's hardened. So it's a big problem because there's billions of those types of internet connected endpoints, and there's no way that we're ever going to be able to perfectly protect them. And now we have these AI tools, which yes, they can help a defender up their game, but man, do they help bad actors tremendously. And so it's a real problem. And, we have another technology that since we're here in Chicago, we've made a big sort of industrial policy bet here on quantum computing. Like not that far from me is this quantum park that's being built. Well, quantum is going to make the current threats look like nothing because the main use case I hear from quantum is it will be able to crack all the encryption that we have. And so you're going to have to quantum encrypt in order to be protected against quantum attackers. Well, how long is that going to take? And of course, the defense departments of the world are going to have the quantum computers first, and everybody's going to just be vulnerable. So, there are serious, and this, leave aside, those industrial endpoints. You guys are all endpoints, and you had better be on your guard against phishing attacks, because we have the tools now to, combined with all the hacking that's already happened, with data sets from Target and the Office of Personnel Management and all kinds of other organizations have been hacked. Well, all that data is out there, and bad guys can aggregate it, and then they could use AI to personalize a message to each one of you. I mean, I bet I could do this. I'm not going to, but that would have so many personal details. That janitor who he stopped in, Jerry just stopped in, and he mentioned as he was, trimming the bushes that your sister needed, a credit card approval, and I thought I would, you would not be able to tell that this was. This is not your old, African prince story that everybody gets the same blast, and you've seen it before, and the antivirus scanners see it, and that's your mom's attack. Now you're gonna get some doozies. Yes, Rosalind.
So,
It's not Rosalind's
actually,
story, but
I need to interrupt.
what I wanted to say was that you've mentioned all the LLMs except the Chinese DeepSeek, and Amazon AWS. Now consider Amazon has everybody's information about everything. So if you're using their AI, how protected are you?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that some of the Chinese ones have done is they've trained themselves on these existing bots like ChatGPT. They automate asking it questions at a very rapid rate with a bot farm, right? A whole army of artificial, accounts and if you do enough queries against these things, you can sort of infer what they know, and that becomes it's the cheater's way. They've they've proven that that way of cheating can get you to a functional bot pretty quickly. Of course, those mainstream guys have taken steps now to try to recognize and stop that. Yes, Susan.
Well, I see we're at time already, and I really don't want to keep everyone. Seems like we could go on all night, but I think maybe if you wanted to, how many more provocations do you have for us?
It's flexible, but I'm happy. I thought, didn't we say we were going to do an hour and a half on this one? Or maybe I didn't understand.
Well, that's fine. If people are ready to stay for another half hour, that's fine. I just didn't want to keep you or other people longer than you were committed to. So everyone, I'm quite sure we can keep this going for another half hour if that's okay with everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
As far as I'm concerned, Rosalind's really the provocative one here.
Okay, now wait a minute, Mr. Duffy. I think what is your name?
Tori.
Tori. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, is this you're using somebody else's account?
No, Roz is my wife. She had signed up for this, and then I ended up on it.
Okay.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
Well, the facial recognition failed.
The one thing that I was saying was about Amazon's AWS. They have all the information about all of us now, and if you use their AI, AWS, how safe is your information with them? I don't think there are any real stops there.
Well, they also have a major presence in the enterprises, and you cannot play this game in the enterprises without assuring those companies that you're going to that what's in house stays in house. So now, if you're a, a consumer, all bets are off. Especially if you're getting some kind of free offering, look out. They're almost certainly gonna mine your data for all it's worth. So that's why my advice is pay for something, and before you do anything with it, go in there and turn off the training option, and don't choose. And I personally would not use any tool that doesn't let me do that. I do think you raise an interesting point about AWS, and really, I would put any of these companies in the AI space that weren't born into just in pure AI companies. So, I mean, so certainly Google, Microsoft, Amazon, to take some examples. These companies obviously have been around for a long time. They have all kinds of existing assets, and they are, as far as I can tell, they're all doing the same play that big pseudo monopolies, or at least really major players in markets do, which is they bundle the hell out of everything. Microsoft is not interested in you signing up for nothing but a little AI bot. Right. They want you to join the Microsoft cinematic universe. And Google you cannot buy that business Google Gemini that I mentioned. I mean, it's bundled with all the other Google crap that I don't want. I had to turn off Gmail. I don't want their Drive, and I don't want all the other stuff. But they basically force you to use a lot of that stuff. So those guys are bundling. So Amazon, the same thing. They want you to join their cinematic universe. And I don't know. I think that I think it's a competitive disadvantage for them. I don't know if you've ever read the book The Innovator's Dilemma by Christensen. It's the author some years ago. It was kind of a classic on how big companies that have dominant market positions fail, which is usually, they keep doing things that their customers tell their big, huge existing customers say you should do, and they ignore upstarts that are doing little, nipping at their heels a little bit, and then one day they wake up and the upstart has chewed into their main business, and sometimes they fail completely. And so I think we're seeing with these huge hyperscalers is another word for them, right? Because the three we talked about there, Microsoft, Google, and Amazon, they're all hyperscalers, meaning all of them have huge arrays of data centers around the world that can scale. I mean, from the point of view of a customer, you can just keep turning on more computer power with all of those. And you can also be a global company, and you can use any of those companies globally wherever you are, and including if you're in Europe and you've got to keep your data domiciled in European data centers, they've got that covered, and so on. So to me, it's sort of interesting to compare the pure play AI companies and these huge companies with major existing assets and customer bases, and you can just see they want to sell a little standalone bot. They want all of you. Okay. Any other questions? Or okay, yes, Michael. Assuming you are Michael.
For now, anyway. Well, I read all the time about AI agents, and to me, it sounds like they're utilities of some kind. But could you explain exactly what an AI agent is?
Yeah. So one of the fundamental splits within the this AI, container. Is that between ad hoc interactive uses of this technology and automated, scaled up uses of this technology? And so as I'm working with these tools day in and day out, especially when I'm working like I am now, I have several business plans and things where I'm quote unquote ideating, right? I'm building business plans and building some early stage software and all this kind of stuff. It's all interactive, right? I use no agents for that. Where agents come in is when you have when you're not just interacting in a dialogue with these tools, but you are scaling up some kind of process automation. So if, let's say, back to my dumb example, Comcast were dumb enough to do the billing with AI, they would have one or more agents, which would be the billing agent. And they would sit there and wait. They would look over the pool of customers and figure out who's supposed to be billed when, and then they would come to life and do all that kind of thing. So that's where agents come in, where there's something that can be, basically it's a headless thing, whereas like now you've seen the screen. Well, this is the user interface for ChatGPT. It's interactive. With the agent, there is no user interface like this. It works behind the scenes, and then agents almost never are just working alone. Normally, you will have a whole orchestration of agents. One gets the milk, one gets the butter, one puts the butter on the bread, kind of, to use an analogy. They do some particular little job. Like okay, let's go back to another callback here. The black hat that's going to hack all of you or try to do phishing attacks against all of you. I guarantee you they will be using agents, right? And one of those agents will be the personalized message generator, which is gonna call other agents that pull that fuse together some real-time data about where you just what you just searched for on search engines, plus the hack we got from Target, plus, and those agents will be feeding it, and then this engine will sit here, and there will be another one that decides, it's been a while since I sent a letter to Susan. I think Susan needs another letter. So that's what it is. It's a piece of automation, and we've had agents for a long time, right? It's just that those agents were deterministic, right? They could sit there and do deterministic things. If it's Thursday, and the billing cycle is between Wednesday and Friday, then that kind of logic is what agents would do, and it's just a way to modularize the way some applications work. And for the most part, we never had that concept before we had all this cloud computing. But one thing you have with cloud is that there's this central place where you can have these little agents come to life and go back down, and there's always this kind of central place where events happen, files arrive, days pass, etc., and you can just kind of create this little organism up there. So I hope that answers it.
Okay, so let's go on to one more provocation, and then I think that's probably all we were going to have.
I think what I have not done is I've only showed this one silly screen. I think I'm going to show you a few examples now, because that's probably, I said I would. First of all, I'm a man of my word. Okay, so this was an example of researching a subject that I had. And by the way, this pattern where I say, what does available research and data say, and so on, this is very commonly what I do. And this is one way to avoid having it just kind of go off the ranch. And I don't really care what random Yahoo said. those kinds of terms up here help ground the research in, the answer in research and data. And I'm being very clear about that. I don't want, I don't care what Hassan Piker has to say about it. Okay. Good. Somebody knows who that is. But like me, does not actually ever listen to him, right? I hope. Know who he is. Therefore, no, never listen to a single word he says. Okay. Okay. So I mentioned that I did this show during the pandemic, and I wanted to take it live. So one of the things I call the show "Hiding in Plain View." So I have a whole project in here. And I guess maybe I'll show this because this is something that when I first started doing presentations on AI, there were no concepts of projects in these tools. And now most of them have that concept, and I use it extremely heavily because this lets me organize my work into these bags of related content, whether it's a personal, it's a comedy thing, it's a business thing, whatever it is. Especially because I use these tools heavily. Without this, my AI life would just be a chaos of random chats, right? So all of my hiding in plain view work, both, and this is a weird mixture of farm, because I'm studying the history of the death of the family farm, and I'm doing things like figuring out what the heck minimum till technology my dad used so I can use that in the show. And I'm working on things like this poster I'm going to show you. So here's the poster that I created for this. So the idea, and I don't know if you can, it's actually a pretty whoops. No. Oh, sorry. I'm flipping through instead of zooming. I just flipped. So this was the first one I did, which I didn't think was very good. Then I did this one. Oh no, darn! Come on, where are we here? Here we go. This is the one I really like, which is it's the Tarred and Feather edition. Which is, the idea is I take this show to Plainview, Nebraska, my hometown, and after my final show, my fellow townsmen run me out of town. So this is obviously an image that I'm generating with AI. I gave it some of my photographs. I told it that when I'm emceeing a show, I wear a bow tie, a black bow tie, and a black vest. And I described, this was actually kind of exactly what I wanted. I wanted this to be set on my main street. I didn't want to see the horrible crowd of, killers, but I wanted to see their shadows. And then just today, for this audience, I decided, well, maybe I need to have this show should start in Chicago, and maybe in Hyde Park. And so here I am being chased by Hyde Parkers too, near the University of Chicago. They're all using protest signs and whatever. Okay. Anyway, so that's an example of a couple of examples of output from ChatGPT. Let me now switch. Get to see my email. Let's go to here we are in this is in Claude from Anthropic, and so I have marked a few examples here to show you. So first, here is an example of a gloss. So this is I call this Project Future, and I've done a whole bunch of work working toward building what I hope will be a fundamentally new way to do project scheduling, which is a specialization I've had for a long time, and I think there are many gaps, and so I've been working away on that. I'll show you some things. So this was after doing a bunch of that work, I generated a glossary. And I started to realize after I started working on a few projects that I kind of could always generate a glossary. It was just kind of it was an easy thing to do. It was based on all the content, that I had built up in that project domain. And so it was a very inexpensive, for me, way to present something that would help people understand the terminology. And so in this case, it's for this schedule tool of the future. Next generation schedule tool is kind of the code, the abbreviation here. And so here you have, it's organized into sections, core concepts of the engine, the next, and I can click on this and I can see some details here. Again, this all comes from the analysis, this is a huge project. So there's a lot for it to draw on in building this glossary. I kind of do the glossary very late as I'm working on one of these projects, because I know by then I've built up a bunch of content. And so again, these are all, kind of concepts that make sense in this little world. 5 modeling constructs. You see, I'm generating these icons, these kind of big icons for each one to make it kind of more visual. It's not some boring gray matter glossary. It actually is the kind of thing that looks fun, right? And again, for all of these, you can drill down and it's all organized into sections. And it has things here that don't exist in today's scheduling tools that I'm proposing to create. So I've got to sell this ultimately to investors and so on. And so having these types of things to explain everything that I'm wanting to do is helpful. Okay, so that's a glossary example. And by the way, because I've got this huge future project to draw on, by the time I get here, here's my prompt. Generate a comprehensive glossary of terms related to the subjects covered in this future project. Add large illustrative icons to each glossary entry to help explain the concepts and to make the glossary more visually appealing. Render this as an interactive HTML report. So, that's it. And I can do that pretty much at the end of any of my projects. I can get a similar kind of work product. Would I do a glossary in the pre-times? Of course not. This wasn't, no way, But now the cost equation has changed. Okay. Speaking of that project, here's another one of the innovative things that I want to do is fundamentally, speaking of probabilistic and deterministic, this tool that I want to bring to the world, one of the major innovations that it brings is that it supports both the traditional deterministic project scheduling, because at NASA, one of my clients, if you wanted to know when the James Webb Space Telescope was going to launch during any of those 10 years, it would have told you the day, the hour, and the minute. And the one thing I can assure you is that is not when it launched. I mean, first of all, the original timeline was off by many years. And it ended up costing $10 billion. And I think the original estimate off of the napkin was, less than $1 billion. So there were a lot of changes that happened to that schedule, but all schedules are like that. And so they are not deterministic, but our schedule tools pretend that the world is deterministic, but it's actually probabilistic and things can happen. So like here, in my system here, things that the probability of things happening is fun, and what would happen if this happens, then what do you do? If that happens, what do you do? And so all this conditionality is baked into the engine. So then I needed a way to show a potential customer or investor, what would this look like? I mean, I'm adding more complexity to the model, but it's more real world. So anyway, this is an example of turn this risk on or off, and you can see what gets added to the schedule. And then there's this shows these are by themselves the tasks. They start on this day, they end on that day. Period. Well, but that might happen, but what's the range of possibilities? So here we can have the probability 10, probability 50%, probability 90% envelopes wrapped around each one. And so again, and then there's other screens here to sort of, understand this chart. So that's an example of something, honestly, without these kinds of tools, when I go on my road trip and I'm going to show people this, I would have been sketching on a marker board. This, imagine, if you will, right? And so now basically they're going to say, well, it looks like it's already done. No, it's not done, but it gives you the idea. And like, here, you click on one of these, and this is all fake data, but it gives you don't have to use too much imagination. So that's pretty cool.
Your
Let's go.
project management looks a lot more fun than mine.
Yeah, well, we've had the first project management was, I think, done for like nuclear submarines. But it turns out that the schedule engines the big three schedule engines are all 40-year-old code bases, and basically they're all being treated as cash cows. And there's been no innovation to speak of there for decades. And those companies are this Oracle and Microsoft and Dell Tech. They're just cashing maintenance checks. And I think we can do better. Did I sell any of you? Any of you want to buy high-end enterprise projects? All right, but wait, there's more. This will get this. Now you're going to want it. So again, this is Claude. So here is I've always wanted this, but I could never justify investing in it for any particular project. I wanted to have this swim lane thing where I could have I wanted to tell us across the top, you have timeline. Down, you have these different sections that tell a different piece of the story of in this case, a project, or it could be anything that happens over time. And, and I wanted to have as many of them as I want. Here's the milestone, it's just like a high level milestone thing. I wanted to be able to expand and collapse these. I wanted this forever, right? I just could never afford to even dream about getting somebody to pay for it. And so I can, you can zoom here, expand and collapse. You can click on something and then you see details over here. Basically click on anything on this whole chart and it will change over there. So again, this is part of that same pitch when I do this roadshow. And I've wanted to have this kind of UI, and I've never had it. And now, so again, this would not exist if it weren't for these new tools. In fact, I don't think this whole project wouldn't exist, frankly, this project future thing, because I've had these ideas forever. But I mean, like, really, I'm going to displace Oracle and Microsoft? But then it became clear to me, well, they don't actually care about this segment. This high end, these customers, the NASAs, the Lockheeds, are so demanding, and there's just not that many of them. And they're in that, like I said earlier, Microsoft can push a new AI toy out to literally a billion people with the press of a button. If I were them, I wouldn't invest in this complicated stuff either, but I'm not them. And this is a very cool market to me. All right. So I mentioned that hiding in plain view thing. So again, would I have done this otherwise? Hell no. I call this, by the way, all this stuff where I go back to the pandemic and I go back to other things. I call it cleaning out the attic. I've been lately, I kind of think, I've had a lot of good ideas over the years. Many of them I didn't do. Maybe I should go look at them again and see, could I, with this show that I did as a virtual meeting during the pandemic, my original idea was that I am the prodigal son returning and saying, what happened since I left? And also, where's my feast? I'm pretty sure that was in the Bible. But anyway, so then I decided, okay, well, I could take a tour and do this one-man show, starting in Chicago, ending up in Plainview, and going to sort of decreasing smaller and smaller cities. And then, so I have this, I generated this little roadmap thing. And, as you click on it, it tells you the details about the show. I've just made this all up. Of course, there's no show. It's all lies. Speaking of lies, this is all lies by me, though, in this case. And there's also some widgetry, you can see it's interactive, and there's a way I can tell it what's the current show. So I can basically use this. I could use this to lay as the show proceeds and you went to the website to sign up or something. So again, would I do this sort of interactive tour map? Hell no. But I did it here, and I'm like, that's pretty cool. And then I was thinking, as you're going through a tour like this, you would let the local people know that, hey, there's this thing, this guy from the city is going back to Nebraska, and there's this whole story, and you should write it. You should give me free media. Okay. All right. And then, so that, let me see. I've got, here's
So this one huge project, though, but you could pull out pieces of it.
Yes, all my projects consist of a basket of chats. So each one of those is a back and forth. They call them turns. I ask, they reply. I say something more, they reply. Back and forth like that. And so here is in Gemini, which I just got converted from the consumer to the business. And one of the things they can do that none of those other tools can do is generate video. So I decided I'm going to do this. Here's my prompt. This was so here for a literally dark comedy film called Death Noir. Generate the trailer. I have had this was in my attic. A comedy show on death called Death Noir. I like the overkill nature of it. It's like it's death isn't enough. It's Death Noir. But anyway, generate the trailer packed with every film noir cliche: smoking, the detective, the dame, the newspaper guy, the cool acting style, the sexual tension, the suits and ties, the hats, the sunglasses, the rotary phones, guns, money, the insurance policy, the rain and fog and storm, the streetlights, the knock on the door, the classic cars, liberal use of voiceovers, the distinctive mysterious music, shot in black and white, etc. It should look realistic in every sense except this heightened genre element density. So I just wanted to heighten these things to make it read comic. And then I have these are like the things that should appear on the screen, because again, this is a trailer, 60-second trailer. So it says Death Noir coming soon. These dots mean pause. In very black and white, shot at night, in the rain, in 72 millimeter Night of the Living Dead grayscale. IMAX 3D, 2D, 1D from director wearing sunglasses at night. Anyway, so that was the thing. And so then, because they have a 10-second limit, I said the trailer will be 60 seconds total, composed of 6 10-second shots, produce shot 1 of 6. And then I said, now do 2. And so then after I was done with all that, I put it into, this is one of those traditional video editing tools from Adobe, Premiere. And so now I stack these 6 little 10-seconder guys together. And so they, as I click through these, I can look at each 10-second piece. Or I should be able here. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to now show you the whole. Let me play a little of this and you tell me if you can hear it. And if not, I'll share because I don't know if the computer audio will go to you. Hear it?
No.
Okay. It's hilarious, right? Because it's like very loud to me and you can't hear it.
Dan, there's a check box on the share screen that you have to check if you want to pass through the audio.
Okay, good. Thank you. So let's see. Okay, so up here, well, you probably can't see what I'm seeing. So share screen, then there's settings. Go to share settings.
No, it's over on the right.
More?
When you're picking you pick the file you want, and then over on the right, there's some.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I'll go into share background. Okay, share sound.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm going to say share sound. Okay, let's try that. So I'm just resharing the screen, but this time I'm sharing. So let me let's see if you hear anything.
It was the kind of night that never ends.
Give me a thumbs up, somebody.
Cold as an unwritten insurance policy.
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. All right. So now I'm going to go back to Adobe. So this is where I generated these little clips. Then I brought them all together in this Adobe Premiere, which is a traditional, editing tool. So here we go.
In this city, the shadows have shadows, and every dame carries a smoking gun, the rotary phone. It was the kind of night that never ends. Cold as an unwritten insurance policy. Death doesn't just knock on your door here. It moves in and rings the rotary phone. Is the cost of a bullet, and I was about to find out who was buying. Some stories are written in ink, but in this town, they're written in blood. I was hoping you'd show up. Some stories are written in blood, but this one was written in the dark. Death Noir, coming soon to a theater near you.
Wow.
That was my first video.
So that's your first. I mean, maybe we really are past time now. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know if we need to end here. This is a provocation for another session.
I have one burning question.
Yes, I think this
Nobody wants a data center. How are you going to get enough data centers for all of this?
Yeah. Well, when you we've been having this whole conversation as if we live in sane times, right? With rational politics and enlightened leadership, and we don't live in. None of those things are true, right? So there's a whole nother conversation we could have. And my biggest fear, actually, when like earlier I said, it's up to us to become well-informed citizens, so that we're not delegating decisions about these technologies to anybody else. We want to gain all of the benefits that we can gain from this technology without paying some massive price in a bunch of things, right? Privacy. And what I worry about most in our current circumstances is just social dislocation, just chaos. Because, I mean, this technology is going to, Joseph Schumpeter, the economist, called it creative destruction. Well, we're about to see a whole lot of destruction. Whether it will be creative remains to be seen. And I think that it would take truly enlightened leadership to thread this needle, and make our way through this transition to this massive new economy. And I just worry. I think it's as likely as not that all the potential that we could get, benefits we could get from this technology, we'll throw them all away in just social disorder and chaos and foolishness. To take one example of what I think we should do is, I think we should. I think this technology, we don't think of it this way, but offers the opportunity to completely re-envision the way education works. I think that I can envision, because I think about myself right now, I am learning about, you name it, agriculture history, many, many, many things at a faster rate than I ever have. And I believe that if I had a role that involved education, I could be a really good mentor to people who needed to, wanted to master this technology and needed a guide, right? Whether they're in a formal education setting or it's in a work setting or they've been laid off or other things. I think that we can very inexpensively greatly accelerate. Maybe forget about learning about AI, just learning about any topic you want, because this is a hyper personalization platform. Like you can tune the information you get to exactly the level that you're at, right? And you can do it super inexpensively. And meanwhile, the traditional, like university model is, hey, drop a cool $250,000 and you too can get a 4-year degree. And that's just not affordable to many, many people. And And anyway, it ends, right? And then you're in the world of the lifelong learning. And so maybe I'm just a utopian, but I think that to me the life of the mind is like intrinsically motivating, but I got turned on to that, and a lot of people have not. But I think it's possible to turn a lot more people on. I mean, so I would love to see us, this be a new age of enlightenment. It makes me laugh just to say it.
Ever the optimist that I am, I think that's a good note to end on. There's so much more to discuss. Clearly, many people have said they hope you can come back and talk to us again.
I love this subject. And you guys have really asked a ton of really, really good questions. I mean, really. Only one of you is just sort of fundamentally wrong.
But I think Kathy's question was a good one to end on, actually,
Dan?
because it's very frightening, but there are things that we can be optimistic about.
It's like so many things in our modern age. A lot of this stuff is creepy cool.
Yeah, right.
It's both things. Yeah.
Dan,
but yeah, I didn't really do justice to the data center question, but that's a pretty big topic unto itself. It's obviously in the news all the time. I mean, the mayor just yesterday made an announcement about it. It's Pritzker has done things in that area. It's obviously become an important topic in a lot of primary elections. So yeah, there's a lot to talk about there.
Well, maybe next time, if you will come back again.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I love this subject, and I'm on kind of a personal crusade to become, for people. I want people to commit to the idea that it's important to understand this technology as a citizen. It doesn't mean you have to cheer it or hate it or any of that, right? It's just that I think that we should not delegate this to some technocrats that claim to be the only ones who understand it.
Well, to that point, I think that's where we can be optimistic. If more people understand it, then there's a greater chance for the more optimistic outcomes.
Yeah, exactly.
In any case, thank you so very much.
All right. Thank you all. I appreciate the engagement.